Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and I'm excited to be here tonight. We have some great information. It is January 15th, 9:30 p.m. Calgary, Alberta time. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us, and I'm just glad you can be here, and I hope that you can tune in and listen to this show. I got some good information off of the internet, and on Monday night we were talking about child abuse and neglect, recognizing and preventing child abuse. And I found this information on a website called helpguide.org, and we didn't get to quite finish that up, so I thought that's what we would do tonight, is just look through some more of that resource information that I pulled off that website. And you can you just type into your browser http helpguide.org, and you can pull that information up yourself. And this is a live streaming blogtalkradio.com internet streaming radio show. You're more than welcome to phone in. The show is live, and the guest call-in number is 917-889-3736. And I also have a chat window up with some information typed up in there, and you're more than welcome to hang out in the chat room and just be comfortable. And if you have questions and I don't get to you, I'm really sorry, and I'll try to answer them if I can afterwards, or at least try to give you a direction to go in. And if you're on the switchboard and you happen to call in and I don't see you right away, just hang in there, because I do look, and I do try to check my switchboard every now and then to make sure that I don't miss anybody. So I'm sure I've missed people in the past, so I'm sorry about that. And so we'll just get started. There's some great information here. On Monday we were talking, this article's great, helpguide.org has resources, loads of resources on all kinds of abuse, domestic violence abuse, domestic violence and abuse, and also child abuse, child sexual abuse, just everything. There's more on there, and you can just go on there and check it out. There's so much information, and it seems to be very detailed and good information. So everything I've gotten off there so far has been really, really good. And so this article was really good. It was Understanding Child Abuse and Neglect. We went through that, all the myths surrounding child abuse, also effects of child abuse and neglect, and types of child abuse, all the different types: emotional child abuse, child neglect, physical child abuse, as well as physical abuse versus discipline. We talked about that Monday night. So, and we also did a little bit on child sexual abuse, and I am doing a child sexual abuse talk in the morning on the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and I'll be doing that next week as well. I'll have lots more resources and stuff for you. So yeah, this is just such a good article. There's warning signs of child abuse and neglect, and we went through that. And now tonight I want to cover, because this is so important, it's risk factors for child abuse and neglect, and also we'll look at recognizing abusive behavior in yourself, and also breaking the cycle of child abuse, and helping an abused or neglected child. There's just some great information. So I'm reading right from their page, and right from their website. I just printed off this material off their website, and anybody can just go on there and do that. And risk factors for child abuse and neglect. While child abuse and neglect occurs in all types of families, even in those that look happy from the outside, children are at a much greater risk in certain situations. For instance, domestic violence, alcohol and drug abuse, untreated mental illness, lack of parenting skills, stress, and lack of support are the ones that they've listed here. And these are huge risk factors for child abuse and neglect. It just adds to the problem. So we'll just look at what they've written here. Domestic violence. Witnessing domestic violence is terrifying to children and emotionally abusive, even if the mother does her best to protect her children and keeps them from being physically abused. The situation is still extremely damaging. If you or a loved one is in an abusive relationship, getting out is the best thing for protecting the children, and that's what they've written here. And if your life is in danger and your child's life is in danger, you need to make sure that you do get help. And you want to make the phone call. You want to get yourself some help. If your life is being threatened, there's only one thing to do, and that is to make a phone call to a crisis line or call 911. Make sure you phone someone. This is so serious. This is going on all around the world. You're not alone. And there's, as much as it's hard to take that step. Make sure you reach out, even if you just talk to a hotline where there's somebody on the other side of the phone who is a professional and who can give you the proper advice and the proper information, right? That's so important. And I know that there's tons and tons of hotlines and resources out there for people just like, if I was in that situation, I could call and I could make sure that I got some good advice from people who know exactly what I'm going through and what I need to do to get myself safe and my children safe. So you do make sure you do that if you're listening on the other end here and you haven't and your life is being threatened. Make sure you get help. I'm not a counselor and I'm not able to give legal advice. I'm just one person who just cares for people. And I've seen so much abuse in my lifetime, and I've seen so much, so many bad things that this is what I want to do is as I'm reaching out for healing, I'm finding resources, and I just want to pass them on to you. So make sure you get help. It is so worth it. Your life, you deserve to have a good life. I know I do, and we all do. It's our human right, and that's why this is child abuse prevention, and human rights abuse prevention is up to us. And we have to make sure that happens. If no one's reaching out to you and you're suffering in a domestic violence situation or a child abuse, adult survivor of child abuse, and you're having issues, make sure you do reach out. There's tons and tons of groups. And I have some great new information here regarding a couple of websites and a couple of support groups that I actually belong to, and they're brand new. And they're started out by a friend of mine, so I'll give you that information here in a bit. Alcohol and drug abuse is another risk factor for child abuse and neglect. Living with an alcoholic or addict is very difficult for children and can easily lead to abuse and neglect. Parents who are drunk or high are unable to care for their children, make good parenting decisions, and control often dangerous impulses. Substance abuse also commonly leads to physical abuse. So this is what they've written here. And there's such a problem in society today. And I know I was a bit of a drug addict myself, but I didn't have any children to have to rear. And it's such a hard problem and a hard place to be. And just know that if you're a parent and you have a drug addiction or you have alcohol problems, reach out, get the help. That this country, North America, has the resources, right? Other places around the world, they don't have these resources, so they can't. There's not much they can do, but we do have people here that care, and I've met so many. I've met just in the last 6 months, I have met so many people who actually do care, and they are waiting on hotlines, and they're sitting there waiting for you to call. So make sure that you do. You want to get help, right? Untreated mental illness. Parents who suffer from depression, an anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, or another mental illness have trouble taking care of themselves, much less their children. A mentally ill or traumatized parent may be distant and withdrawn from his or her children, or quick to anger without understanding why. Treatment for the caregiver means better care for the children. So, there's lots of people with untreated mental illness, and, parents are people too, and they suffer from depression and, like they're saying, anxiety disorders and all kinds of mental illness, just like, everyone else, even whether you have children or not. It's a real problem, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and that's the whole key. The society over the last, decade or so has really started to become aware of the issues of mental illness and the fact that it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just an illness, and there's either medications or there's other treatments. Working with a therapist and working with a support group. I'm involved in quite a few support groups, and I find such healing and such just exactly like it says, support, right? When you need someone to talk to who understands your situation, that's who you get on the phone and talk to. Or you get on, if you've got a computer, you can get into these groups and you can get on the computer and just chat, right? So it's so important to reach out and get that help, that professional help. I do promote that. And a lack of parenting skills is another risk factor for child abuse and neglect. Some caregivers never learned the skills necessary for good parenting. Teen parents, for example, might have unrealistic expectations about how much care babies and small children need, or parents who were themselves victims of child abuse may only know how to raise their children the way they were raised. That's the whole cycle, right? The whole cycle of child abuse. The parents are abused, or one of the parents is abused, and they pass that on to their children. Then in turn their children pass that on if they don't break the cycle. And I broke the cycle. Hallelujah. In such case, I don't have children, but that's not why I didn't have children. I would have loved to have children, and I definitely broke the cycle. In such cases, parenting classes, therapy, and caregiver support groups are great resources for learning better parenting skills. I know there's lots of help for parents out there. And there's groups just like I belong to, child abuse survivor groups and different things like that. There's actual parenting groups for people who have children who are just having a hard time coping, and they just think, man, I need to reach out to somebody because I don't know how to handle this, or this is just too much, because it can be, and life can be too much at any time for anyone, right? So that's the whole issue. It's the whole idea of finding out where you're comfortable and just reaching out to people, and you'll find if you reach out, you will find the people. You'll find them, but you have to keep reaching out, and that's the key. You just have to keep looking. You will find help if you keep looking for it, right? Let's see, here they have to say stress and lack of support is another risk factor for child abuse and neglect. Parenting can be a very time-intensive, difficult job, especially if you're raising children without support from family, friends, or the community, or you're dealing with relationship problems or financial difficulties they've written here. Caring for a child with a disability, special needs, or difficult behaviors is also a challenge. It's important to get the support you need so you are emotionally and physically able to support your child, right? Because that is a daunting task, raising children for anyone, and it's just part of the normal human condition, that things can become very stressful for everyone, and you do want to just, instead of lashing out at your child, you want to just make sure you get help and really look at the situation and say, okay, this is why I'm stressed out. So now what do I need to do so that I don't hurt my child? That is the whole issue, right? Children are being hurt because people are stressed out a lot of times. And I know that was the situation in my home. A lot of times that was my mom's problem. She was so highly stressed out that she could not deal with anything in a positive way, and so her way of dealing with it was just anger and really abusive behavior. So that's the thing. This can happen to anyone, and so that's why it's really important to reach out. And the groups are out there. The people are out there just waiting for people to call, because there's so many people that do need this support, right? So that's just so important. Recognizing abusive behavior in yourself. This is another article that they've written here, and they said, I'm just going to read right from it. Do you see yourself in some of these descriptions, painful as it may be? Do you feel angry and frustrated and don't know where to turn? Raising children is one of life's greatest challenges and can trigger anger and frustration in the most even-tempered. If you grew up in a household where screaming and shouting or violence was the norm, you may not know any other way to raise your kids. So that's just the truth of it right there. A lot of abuse is just passed down, generational abuse, one generation to the next. And because the coping skills and the stressful situations that were placed on those families, they never really ever dealt with it or learned or had the support or got help, and so they just pass it on to their kids, and then it just keeps going and keeps going. Recognizing that you have a problem is the biggest step to getting help. If you yourself were raised in an abusive situation, that can be extremely difficult. Children experience their world as normal. It may have been normal in your family to be slapped or pushed for little to no reason, or that mother was too drunk to cook dinner. It may have been normal for your parents to call you stupid, clumsy, or worthless. Or it may have been normal to watch your mother get beaten up by your father. See, these would be the norms in an abusive home, right? So children, when they grow up around that, they think that's just normal, right? Unless they see something else, and unless they get help at an early age, they're going to grow up like that, thinking that that's the way that you're supposed to live, right? It is only as adults that we have the perspective to step back and take a hard look at what is normal and what is abusive. Read the above sections on the types of abuse and warning signs. We already went through that last Monday. And it says, do any of those ring a bell for you now? or from when you were a child. The following is a list of warning signs that you may be crossing the line into abuse. So here's how do you know when you've crossed the line? It says you can't stop the anger. That's 1. 2, you feel emotionally disconnected from your child. 3, meeting the daily needs of your child seems impossible. And 4, other people have expressed concern. So it says the first one, you can't stop the anger. This is what starts as a swat on the backside may turn into multiple hits, getting harder and harder. You may shake your child harder and harder and finally throw him or her down. You find yourself screaming louder and louder and can't stop yourself. So that's when you can't control your anger. That's an anger management issue. And what turns out what once might have been a little spanking turns into a violent beating and violent abuse, and that's physical abuse. And so that's when you notice there's a problem, right? If you can't, if your anger, if you're disciplining your child and it turns to anger and rage, you could hurt your child and you could kill your child. And this happens day in and day out all over the world. And so sad, and it just really needs to stop. That's why I'm just, standing up, just one more voice saying stop child abuse. And the only way we're going to do that is through education and through talking about it, right? Just pushing it under the carpet and saying, oh, well, nobody needs to know our business or nobody needs to know my business, is not going to stop child abuse. Silence is the problem. This needs to be brought out front and center, and it needs to be brought out more and more into the public sector, because children are dying at the hands of parents who cannot stop their anger, right? And also, it says here, you feel emotionally disconnected from your child. You may feel so overwhelmed that you don't want anything to do with your child. Day after day, you just want to be left alone and for your child to be quiet. So this is when you're just emotionally disconnected from your child. You just can't deal with it. Maybe you've got some other stress issues or even health issues. If you're a parent who has health issues and stuff, or financial woes, and all of a sudden you just become so overwhelmed that you can't even deal with your child, right? That's when you know there's a problem. Is when you just want to be left alone and you can't deal with your child. You just want your child to be quiet. That's when a lot of emotional abuse can take place, because you are, as a parent, disconnecting from your child. So you're basically going to just shut them out. You're not going to listen to their needs. You're not going to be able to help them do the normal things like their homework or get ready for school the next day or things like that, because you're so emotionally disconnected because you're so overwhelmed. And I'm telling you, this can happen in any family, and it does happen in a lot of families. And so, you do want to reach out and get some help. And if you're a child, if you were a victim or a survivor of child abuse and you are having a hard time, really make sure you get some help, because I know I was there. Meeting the daily needs of your child seems impossible. That's another thing that you've crossed the line if you can't meet the daily needs of your child, because it just seems like it's just impossible. So they've written here, while everyone struggles with balancing dressing, feeding, and getting kids to school or other activities, if you continually can't manage to do it, it's a sign that something might be wrong. So that's more along the lines of neglect, right? If you can't get your kids, bathed and make sure they've had their breakfast and get their lunch bags together and help them get out to school, and if you just can't even hardly do it because you can't get out of bed, then or just as a sign of depression or something, or you just can't deal with it, that's a sign there's something wrong. And then the last one they had here is other people have expressed concern. And it says, it may be easy to whistle at other people expressing concern. However, consider carefully what they have to say. Are the words coming from someone you normally respect and trust? Denial is not an uncommon reaction. So yeah, if a parent, if someone, like a close friend, actually notices that a parent's having trouble and they actually say something about it, you do want to pay attention to that, because, and you might be a little offended at first, but then you might sit back, and if you're a parent, who's having problems raising your child, you might sit back and think, yeah, maybe I do need help, right? Maybe I do need help to raise my child to get the proper resources and the proper support, because there is support out there, and that's the whole issue. That's what the world needs to know, that there is a lot of support, but we need to keep reaching out, and we need to keep funding these groups who are doing good work and getting real proactive prevention and awareness, parenting, coping skills, workshops and things, just things that are really working within a community. That's what you want to support, right? It's just so important. We want to save these children's lives. We want to make sure that these children have a good life. And I just see in the paper and on the news all the time, these horrific stories of children being abused and mistreated and neglected and killed. And every day, right? This is going on every single day and all around the world, not just in North America. So it's just very concerning to me, and it should be a concern, a number one priority for all of us, right, to stop child abuse. This one here is called Breaking the Cycle of Child Abuse. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. We might not be able to finish completely, but we'll see. We've got about 10 minutes left. And if you'd like to phone in, I'll just give you my guest call-in number again. It is, just in case you're hearing me on a player somewhere, it's 917-889-3736. And if you have a topic that you'd like to bring up, or maybe something topic related to child abuse, and you have some resources that you think people just really would love to hear about, make sure you do phone in. I welcome you to the show. And if you want to just come and sit in the chat room, you just register as a user on blogtalkradio.com and you can sit in the chat room. So breaking the cycle of child abuse. If you have a history of child abuse, having your own children can trigger strong memories and feelings that you may have repressed. This may happen when a child is born or at later ages when you remember specific abuse to you. You may be shocked and overwhelmed by your anger and feel like you can't control it, but you can learn new ways to manage your emotions and break your old patterns. Remember, you are the most important person in your child's world. It's worth the effort to make a change, and you don't have to go it alone. Help and support are available. See, I love this article because it's so good. You're not alone in this, and you can get help and support, and it's so much better than hurting or killing your child. And it shouldn't come to that, right? Reach out and get some help. It's just so important. Tips for changing your reactions, it says. Learn what is age appropriate and what is not, and also develop new parenting skills. Thirdly, take care of yourself. And then 4, get professional help. 5, learn how you can get your emotions under control. And that's a big one right there. Because emotions are really strong. And, if we can actually get a little bit of a grip on them, even as a survivor of child abuse, you have to be able to control your emotions, and you have to be able to keep going and keep walking in a positive direction and keep moving and searching for healing and walking it out. So if you're a parent and you're having problems, you have to do the same thing. You want to keep looking for that help, right? Because a parent has problems too. Parents have problems, and they do need help every now and then, right? So it says here, learn what is age appropriate and what is not. They have written here, having realistic expectations of what children can handle at certain ages will help you avoid frustration and anger at normal child behavior. For example, newborns are not going to sleep through the night without a peep, and toddlers are not going to be able to sit quietly for extended periods of time, right? So it's a good idea to learn at what ages, you can do things to help your children so that it helps avoid a lot of stress on you. And then, of course, because you're not stressed out and you're having fun with your child and you're helping your child, which is what every parent should do, you learn what's normal, appropriate behavior for them, and then you're not so stressed out when they are doing what they're doing, because you realize, oh, this is why they're doing that, because this is normal child behavior for my little baby who's this age, or a toddler, a couple of years old, right? So it's so important. Develop new parenting skills. While learning to control your emotions is critical, you also need a game plan of what you're going to do instead. Start by learning appropriate discipline techniques and how to set clear boundaries for your children. Parenting classes, books, and seminars are a way to get this information. You can also turn to other parents for tips and advice. And I think on this website here, helpguide.org, they have a whole bunch of information on parenting tips and parenting workshops and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I saw some stuff on there. You can go check it out on their website and see if I could be wrong, but I know I just recently saw a website with lots of that on there, and this might be one of them. It also, healthyplace.com is another place where I think they have lots of that, tips for parents and help for parents, right? And it says, take care of yourself. If you are not getting enough rest and support, or you're feeling overwhelmed, you are much more likely to succumb to anger. Sleep deprivation, common in parents of young children, adds to moodiness and irritability. Exactly what you were trying to avoid, right? So, I know as much as it's hard because everyone's just schedules are so busy and everyone's got so much on their plate, especially when you're raising children. I don't have children, so, I've got a lot more time than someone who has children. And I know how overwhelmed I can get. And I always try to appreciate people who have children because I understand how overwhelmed they must get. So you want to make sure you're getting some support. And reach out to people around you if you need to get that support, right, to take care of yourself. And get professional help. Breaking the cycle of abuse can be very difficult if the patterns are strongly entrenched. If you can't seem to stop yourself no matter how hard you try, it's time to get help. Be it therapy, parenting classes, or other interventions. Your children will thank you for it. And that's so important. If you think you're just out of control and maybe you were abused as a child and you can't control your anger and stuff, it's really time to get help. And just make sure that you reach out because, like it says here, your children will thank you for it because I love my parents, and even today I love my parents, and I just didn't love what they did to the family. So, and to each other and to themselves, right? Just complete destruction. So, I would have definitely thanked them had they gotten some help, right? I would have been very thankful, and it's unfortunate they didn't. So, learn how you can get your emotions under control. The first step to getting your emotions under control is realizing that they are there. If you were abused as a child, you may have an especially difficult time getting in touch with your range of emotions. You may have had to deny or repress them as a child, and now they spill out without your control. For a step-by-step process on how you can develop your emotional intelligence, visit EQ Central. So that's probably, I'm not sure if that's on their website. It probably is. Learning to control your anger. Getting anger under control is easier than you think. With a little insight into the real reasons for your anger and some effective anger management tools, you can learn how to express your feelings in healthier ways and keep your temper from hurting the people in your life. And you can read, they actually have an article that you can, I didn't pull it up and I didn't print it out, but it's here. And they actually show it right on the website, Anger Management, Tips and Techniques for Getting Anger Under Control. And that's awesome. I grew up in an abusive home where everybody was angry, and when everybody got angry, it got violent. And so when I was young, particularly before the age of 20, I'd say, I was violent, and I could just fly off the handle at anyone. So this is what I learned at home, and this is how I was treated, and that's how I treated other people. I kind of continued a little bit into my 20s, and then I realized how my behavior was looking to other people, and I decided to start changing it. And slowly over time, I really learned on how to work on myself. And because I wanted to treat people how I wanted to be treated, I started to figure it out, right? So I think we'll continue on. We've only got a couple minutes left in the show. So we'll continue on with this on Monday night and helping an abused or neglected child. Call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. If you suspect child abuse, make the only right decision that there is to make, and that is to call and get help for that child. 1-800-4-A-CHILD. That's the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. And I've got some great resources here. Stop Child Abuse Survivors. This is a group started up by Linda Lee. It's a Ning group. It's a support group started by Linda Lee to help survivors of child abuse cope, find hope and resources, and a place for proactive awareness of issues surrounding child abuse. I'm a member. I just signed up. It's a new group. You can find this at http. Just type in your browser, lindalee.ning.com, and you can join up and be a member. That's where I'm at. Also, she has another one for women only. Stop Child Abuse. Women only on Stop Child Abuse at the same location. So this one you have to be a member only. You have to sign in, and because it's for women only, just so that women can find support dealing with issues surrounding abuse, with other women, right? And I also am a volunteer for Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and you can go on their website. You could spend months on there. I said days before, but you could spend months on there. Dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. please support them. Do whatever you can to get the word out about them. They are doing awesome work, and they are going to have a Blog Talk Radio show coming up real soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And I'm going to be tuning into that. There's the Real Grace Network for Women. The Real Grace for Women Network, www.realgracenetwork.org. So I'll be back on Sunday, and Sunday 8 o'clock in the morning, and then 10 o'clock in the morning as well. And I hope you can join me. Take care, everybody. Make sure you get some help. Stay with us, and we'll be chatting with you again. I thank you for tuning in, and I thank you for your support. Have a great night.